All right. Hello out there in the tubes of the internet, and welcome to This Week in Space. I'm your host with the most, Joan Emerson Bell. I'm an astrologer, counselor, tarot reader, do an astrology themed radio show every once in a while. One of those should be coming out, God willing, for this Aquarius new moon eclipse. Good morning, Gina Maria. Good morning, everybody out there in TV land. We've got, yeah, a pretty intense week in space. One might say, if one were so inclined, that this is one of the biggest astrological weeks of the year. We've got a new moon solar eclipse that's going down. What's up? Good morning. We've got the Saturn Neptune conjunction. We have the beginning of the year of the fire horse. There's a lot popping off in space this week. But before we get all up in it, just a couple announcements. I'm going to be co-facilitating a retreat in Greece. This is the Oracle Dream Retreat that's going on May 8th through 15th. And we're going to Epidavros and Delphi and a couple other awesome places. It's a week-long dreaming retreat exploring the precognitive powers of dreaming, and it should be pretty awesome. And yeah, I hope to see you all there. If you're interested, you can go to themysteries.org or follow Sarah Jane's Dreaming on Instagram. I also have a link in my bio on Instagram, and I'll put a link in the show notes for all the folks on the YouTube and the podcast. And Gina Marie is saying, don't know if I can handle any more intensity. And yo, I feel you, girl. I'm kind of maxed out myself. I had to take a break last week, so appreciate your patience. We're going to go back over some of the things from last week, or actually one of the transits in this week's show. But yeah, it's pretty spicy out there. And beyond the sort of intensity of world events, there's just a vibe. I don't know if you all be feeling it, but there's just this like intense kind of dysregulating vibe that just feels like kind of the water that we're swimming in at this moment. And I think over this week and the next couple weeks, really thinking about how you can care for yourself, how you can slow down, how you can resource yourself and be good to yourself and others. So, yeah, my other announcement is I'm available for tarot and astrology readings. You can find me through my website at campwizardcamp.com or hit me up on Instagram at Blind Stallion Space Wizard and just shoot me a DM and we can figure out a time to talk. All right. Now that all the ad business is out of the way, let's get into the astrology of this week. Oof. Yeah, I mean, this has been building for a while, and it's I got a lot to say, so I'll try and do it in I'll try and keep it contained, but we'll just see where this goes. Okay, so going back, way back when to spooky old Friday, the 13th of February, we had Saturn entering Aquarius. And sorry, Saturn entering Aries. And Saturn spends about 2.5 years per sign. And Saturn had been in Pisces since March 7th of 2023. And so Saturn first entered Aries on May the 24th of 2025. And then they retrograded back into Pisces on September the 1st of 2025. And then they re-entered Aries this past Friday, February the 13th of 26. And Saturn will be posted up in Aries, working on boundaries, limitation, pressurizing things in that area of the chart all the way until April the 12th of 2028. And for those of y'all who have your natal Saturn in Aries, congratulations, it is your Saturn return. So yeah, good luck, folks. So Saturn is in their fall in Aries, and this is in the traditional astrology. And so a planet in their fall tends to have their skills kind of used against them. And so Saturn is a planet that is connected to time and things that are built through dedication and commitment and repetition. All these things that these structures and forms that we build through all of this commitment and dedication and hard work that can withstand the test of time. Now, Aries is cardinal fire, and that sign is about breaking new ground, igniting things, and initiating new activities and adventures. So with Saturn in this sign, there's kind of incongruence. You know what I'm saying? Uh, Saturn can feel very rushed. There can be a sense of immediacy that really conflicts with the Saturnian sense of patience and the need to build lasting structures that maintain stability, as well as hard work, which Saturn values. Aries, I'm not going to say that Aries isn't a hard worker, but Aries is like, I'm going to do this. Oh, look over there. I'm going to go do that. And Saturn is like, this thing isn't done, and kind of has a meltdown around it. So this can bring up frustrations around feeling pressed or rushed to get things done. It can create issues when we're feeling pressure to build the things that require more time and commitment to make them last, but not having the time to actually do that because there's all this fiery energy that's like, go, 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 go. We don't have time for that. You know, don't use the long screws because they're over there. Use the short ones, whatever, and then we end up building kind of shoddy constructions. And as a result, these structures and systems that we rush to implement may fall apart, leaving us with feelings of frustration. And so Saturn can also show up as our inner critic. I don't know if you all know that guy, but woo, it can be harsh sometimes. And if things don't go as planned or if things fall apart, Saturn may show up as this inner critical part. And so it's going to be important over the next 2.5 years to learn to practice patience with ourselves as well as self-compassion and allowing sort of the patience for if we are feeling rushed or pressed to be able to slow down and be like, okay, what is actually important here? Okay, like this job requires time. This thing that I'm building requires patience. The reality that I'm constructing requires some diligence and commitment. And so even though the external world is sort of pushing me and pressing me and telling me to rush, I need to slow my roll and really focus on what's important to me. And I think another component of this is that we are asked to learn to hold the tension between the Mars ruled Aries that wants to dive into things head first and get mixed into whatever it is to the very top, and Saturn, who is cautious and doesn't like to do anything until it has the systems in place to make sure that its endeavors will be successful. Aries is about rapid acceleration and Saturn is about restraint. So this tension will be kind of difficult to hold, but this is an opportunity to find the right balance within ourselves between impulsivity and caution so that we don't blow up our engines by jamming down on the gas and the brakes simultaneously. As cardinal fire, Aries is kind of igniting the fire. However, when the fuel is gone, the fire tends to burn out. So with Saturn here, the question is, how do we maintain the fires that we are starting without burning out or without running out of fuel and stalling out or crashing out? You know what I'm saying? Hold on, let me just check the comments real quick. Ooh, Dana Marie B says job interview, eclipse and solar return tomorrow. I'm really trying to ground and find balance. We're going to be talking about the eclipse in just a moment, but happy birthday. And yeah, and Gina Maria mentioning the intensity of the Saturn Neptune, which conjunction, which I'll be talking about in a minute as well. So Saturn is about maintaining the status quo. This is both psychologically, internally, as well as externally. As a planet of boundaries and limits, it maintains the separation between our sense of self, who we are, my ego identity, and what is external or other or outside of us. So in Saturn's tenure in Pisces, Saturn was developing structures and strategies to keep the emotional depths at bay so that we didn't become overwhelmed or flooded. Think about Saturn in Pisces as like building dams or plumbing systems that sort of channeled the emotional energy or tried to hold it back. So Aries is about fighting to create a space of belonging for oneself and asserting one's individuality through action and sometimes struggle. Now that Saturn is in Aries, it's working on structuring the ways that we take action and how we assert our individuality. We'll also put more of an emphasis on the obstacles we encounter and the pushback we experience based on the ways that we take action. Something to consider here is work smarter, not harder. Aries, as a Mars ruled sign, is always kind of looking for a fight, looking for a challenge, something that it can overcome, something that it can struggle with because it helps it to feel alive. And so, as we notice the pressures of the obstacles or the challenges that we are faced with, how do we take a step back and be like, okay, I want to go head on to this thing, but is there a smarter way? Is there a slower way? Is there a more strategic way that I can achieve my goal instead of fighting everything that I feel like stands in my way? And again, running out of fuel, burning out, crashing out. So Saturn is also a planet that is associated with authority. As Saturn enters into Aries, into this sign of action and individuality and acceleration, we get to consider our own relationship with authority. Oftentimes, personal authority is outsourced onto external figures, parents, teachers, bosses, police, politicians, etc. It can feel easy in some ways to hand over our responsibilities to other people and to allow them to dictate the structures of our lives. It also provides us with somebody else to blame when things don't go right, right? When things fall apart, we can be like, oh, it's not my fault. That person was supposed to handle it. I'm good. I'm good. And I can just blame them. However, the lesson of Saturn in Aries, which is the first sign of the zodiac, which is, again, struggling to create space for oneself and to exert one's individuality, is to reclaim our authority and to accept the responsibilities and the commitments that come with it. This puts more responsibility on the individual and requires the individual to own their mistakes. These are, you know, these are both kind of symbols of maturity, responsibility and owning our mistakes. This is like mature stuff. And Saturn is all about maturity. And while Aries is seeking the freedom to assert oneself and to take action to discover what is possible, Saturn asks us to take responsibility for the results of those actions. Because with great freedom comes great responsibility. And the ability to call back our authority from external systems that we have outsourced it to means that we have no one to blame but ourselves if something goes wrong or goes sideways. And that we need to develop our own structures in which to operate in while respecting the dignity and sovereignty of the other individuals that we populate the world with. And this word dignity, I think, is a kind of interesting one. According to Merriam-Webster, it means the quality or state of being worthy of honor or respect. And so Saturn, like I was saying, is in their fall. And so they have no dignity in Aries, which is interesting to consider that state. Saturn here is not worthy of honor or respect. And so it may try to achieve its goals of structure, discipline, and limitation in some like shady ways. Without the support of the sign it's in, Saturn may move to underhanded techniques or methods to achieve its goals. On a national scale, we've already seen this play out the last time that Saturn was in Aries. In June of 2025, right after Saturn entered Aries, ICE began doing raids and sweeps in LA, which resulted in mass protests. This in turn impacted city infrastructure, slowing traffic and public transportation. And Saturn has a lot to do with infrastructure. It also, involved the illegal abductions and arrests of a bunch of civilians and who are, in ICE detention now. And according to the brilliant astrologer Sam Reynolds, love him, Saturn in Aries tells the story that might makes right. And it can try to dominate through intimidation or threats or shows of force. And we can think about this as them having no dignity here. They are not worthy of honor or respect. So they resort to force and power and pressure in order to meet their needs or achieve their ends. However, because Saturn is in their fall, it oftentimes doesn't have the fuel or support to maintain the kind of shock and awe tactics that it employs to exert its dominance. And the structures that it seeks to implement are developed too quickly to be actually sustainable. We can consider reclaiming our own inner authority. Um, as we consider reclaiming our own inner authority, we also want to consider the ways that we want to assert ourselves or seek to hold power over others. Is there a better and potentially more sustainable way to operate that doesn't follow the might makes right story? Can we look at ways of empowering others instead of needing to fight for everything or fight everything? And are there places where we can let it be easy instead of everything needing to be a struggle or a battle all the time? And there will probably be plenty of struggles over the next few years. And we want to consider the ways we can conserve our energy where we can so that we have the energy to show up for those struggles with honor and respect and to not get burned out because we have wasted all of our fuel fighting every battle along the way. You know what I'm saying? Cool. Okay, so that's some old news, but that kind of sets the stage for the Saturn Neptune conjunction, which will be occurring at 0 degrees of Aries on the 20th, just 4 short days from today. But before we get there, let's look at this new moon solar eclipse in Aquarius. This is occurring tomorrow, February the 17th, at pretty early in the morning. It's happening at 4:01 a.m. Pacific time, making that 7:01 a.m. on the East Coast. And this solar eclipse is occurring at 28 degrees and 49 arc minutes, the fixed air sign of Aquarius. This is also a north node eclipse. So give me a second for the folks on the YouTube. I'm going to see if I can pull up the chart here, if I can figure out where they put it. Okay. So let's, whatever. Okay. So, um, looking at this chart, this is the new moon solar eclipse chart. We have the moon and the sun conjunct at 28 degrees of Aquarius. Excuse me. They are squaring Uranus at 27 degrees of Taurus, and we have Venus conjunct the south node, or sorry, the north node right there at 8 degrees of Pisces. So let's talk about this a little bit, shall we? This new moon is kind of an event. It is the first eclipse in this eclipse season. It is also the first eclipse in the Aquarius Leo axis. So it provides kind of a preview of what the vibe of the nodes in Aquarius and Leo will feel like. The nodes move into Aquarius. The North Node moves into Aquarius, meaning the South Node moves into Leo on July the 26th of 2026, and they will be there until March the 26th of 2028. And so this eclipse is our first taste of the themes that will be presented over the next few years when the nodes are transiting those signs and that Aquarius Leo axis. So this is a partial solar eclipse occurring on the north node. And so the north node is over here at 8 degrees of Pisces, and the sun and the moon are over there in Aquarius at 28 degrees. However, when I think it's a 15-degree orb, whenever a lunation occurs within that orb, 15, maybe it's 17, I can't remember at this moment. But whenever we have a lunation within that orb of the nodes, we get an eclipse. And so they can be out of sign. So eclipses tend to create situations that are beyond the control of the individual, which create endings and new beginnings that can feel fated in some ways. As a North Node eclipse, this can help us to rewrite some old patterns and to step into new versions of ourselves. However, Rahu, who is the North Node, is a head without a body. And it just eats and eats and eats, and it doesn't know when it's full because it has no connection to its stomach. And so it operates through consumption. It is the unfulfilled desire that pulls us deeper into the simulation. And it can bring up obsession or hunger. So pay attention to what comes up during this eclipse and the places where you feel pulled by desire or hunger. And Venus being exalted in Pisces, being conjunct the North Node during this eclipse, we may feel this hunger or this desire in around relationships, around beauty, around things like this, around love, around sexuality, and we may feel pulled by desire. We may feel pulled by, oh, I need to look better or look in this way or look in that way. And so we want to just track this and allow ourselves to notice, okay, I feel this hunger, this desire, this pull that is causing me to act in this way or wants me to act in this way. Is this actually what I want to do? Can we make this maybe like unconscious hunger conscious in some ways? And with this North Node eclipse, I think about the story of Hansel and Gretel, who were two hungry children who were lured into a pretty bad situation because of their hunger. And they didn't really have a choice. They were abandoned in the woods and they, followed a trail of candy into a witch's hut. And then they become trapped by a witch in the heart of the dark woods. And the witch is also starving. Like every character in this story is driven by hunger. And Hansel and Gretel are driven by the hunger for connection, the hunger for attachment, and also the physical hunger. And it leads them into connection with a witch who is starving and wants to eat them. And so this whole tale is a story of hunger and what hunger causes us to do if we are not able to be conscious of it. So this eclipse is occurring in Aquarius, and Aquarius is the sign of the outsider and the rebel. It is a Saturn ruled sign, which talks about the structure which separates what's inside from what's outside. When we're in a position of the outsider, we are able to gain a different perspective on how systems function. And through that distance and that objective view, we are able to update the existing systems so that they can ideally function better. Aquarius is also interested in the relationship between the ideal and reality, and looking at ways we can hold both the present moment while simultaneously looking at ways we can improve our current experience and step into a better future. With this eclipse, these themes will be highlighted. The solar eclipse is a time for new beginnings. And solar eclipses occur during new moons, and they become kind of like supercharged new moons, where the seeds that are planted here tend to unfold over long stretches of time. However, where new moons are times of rest and seeding new intentions for the next cycle, an eclipse is a shakeup. Things are obscured as the luminaries block each other, and this creates unpredictability. With a solar eclipse, the sun is blocked from view by the moon, and what was visible becomes invisible. So this asks us to find new ways of seeing and new ways of knowing, which may not be clear yet. The sun is a symbol of coherence, and as it becomes obscured, coherence kind of breaks down, which can lead to disruption and change. Eclipses are trigger points that tend to unfold over longer cycles of time, and their impact can be unpredictable and feel kind of faded in some ways. And so, and everyone has their own take on this, but I'm gonna give you my take. I'm gonna say it's not advisable to do a lot of magic or heavy duty intention setting during eclipses because they can be so unpredictable. And there can be too much energy moving through the system, which may lead to erratic results. It is more advisable to sit back and witness, to notice what's coming up in your internal world and the themes that feel present for you. Because we don't want to set intentions for a long-term cycle based on the hunger that we are feeling in this moment. It's sort of like going to the grocery store when you're starving and like wanting to go shopping for the next couple weeks, but you're starving. And so, like, you come back and it's just like junk food because you were really hungry for that in the moment. And then you're kind of left with that until you go shopping again. And so, again, we want to notice what's coming up in the internal world and these themes. It might be helpful to try and step back and take a little bit of an objective position and ask ourselves, what am I hungering for? And is this really going to satisfy my needs? And also to notice the hunger or the threads of desire which are emerging during this time, because these threads may give you a path to follow through this eclipse season and beyond. As the first eclipse in the Aquarius Leo axis, this will continue to unfold over the next few years. Another thing to consider is that Saturn, who is the traditional ruler of Aquarius, is the ruler of this new moon and has just moved into Aries, which is the sign of their fall. And so I spoke about this at length at the beginning, but Saturn being in its fall lacks the ability to kind of resource the sun and the moon during this eclipse. And the structures and limitations that Saturn is usually able to provide may be lacking in some ways, which might add an extra element of chaos or shakeup to this moment. Coupled with that, Uranus, the planet of sudden change and unpredictability, is squaring this lunation. The square from Uranus to this eclipse should add another level of kind of unpredictability to this astrological event. The Sun square Uranus was exact yesterday, Sunday the 15th, but Uranus will be in one orb of a square to this new moon, giving it quite a bit of influence. So Uranus seeks to break free of old structures and to create new, more idealized forms. Uranus is a planet of disruption and breakdowns that create the opportunity for breakthroughs, which is not really the easiest feeling, but it does open up the possibility for change and growth through the disruption of the status quo. So while Uranus in Taurus is revolutionizing our relationship to resources, stability, and what we value, with this square, there is a challenge or a tension from this revolutionary energy, which will force us to consider the forms that we are operating in and cause us to maybe have an increased desire to break out of old structures or the old patterns or habits that we have been operating in. The square will challenge the places we have become comfortable and complacent, and it may even agitate us into creating the necessary changes that we have been sleeping on making. Uranus also has a lot to do with our ideals and the kind of idealized vision that we each hold and that we strive for. Uranus wants to kind of tear anything down that doesn't live up to this vision, which can be kind of disruptive, especially if Uranus like gets going and it's like that thing's not good enough, that thing's not good enough, burn it all down, whatever, you know. Um, However, with this eclipse, there is a call to really tune in to what that idealized vision is and what is that vision that we hold for the future. And this is not to abandon or blow up our present moment, but it creates an orientation point and something to work towards. And I feel like that we have all been inundated with these dystopian images of the future. And now it feels like we have kind of stepped into that collectively. However, what would it be like to create a more generative version of the future? Something that broke us out of the dystopian vision that has been dreamed for us. What would it look like to stand outside of that old vision of what the future holds and to create something that feels more aligned with our own vision of how things could be? This may be a really good way of disrupting the status quo that has been built around us and stepping into something that feels new and more generative, that provides a different path into a better future. Okay. So and Dana Marie B saying, "Oh, the eclipse is in your sign and nodes on the ascendant." Yeah. So, this is probably a pretty powerful moment for you. I would say take it slow and remember to drink water and breathe. So, also Tuesday the 17th. we have the beginning of the Chinese zodiacal year of the fire horse. And so this new moon eclipse also marks the beginning of the year of the fire horse. And Chinese astrology is not my specialty. However, I watched a fantastic talk by Jennifer Ng through the International Association of Astrological Magic, which is fantastic. And it's like a $3 membership. $3 monthly membership, and they have great talks. And Jennifer Ng gave a wonderful talk on Chinese astrology and the year of the fire horse, and I'm drawing a lot of what I'm going to say here from that talk. And so, and based on that and other things that I've read, the year of the fire horse seems like a pretty intense year. The horse is independent and powerful. It is about speed, movement, and rebellion. Horses are wild animals, which also have a long history with humans. They've been used for work, transportation, war. They are even used for therapy. So like pretty broad spectrum of the ways that horses have interacted with people or worked with people. They're incredibly powerful beings with massive muscular bodies that are perched on these like very thin, powerful legs. And the horse channels all of its strength and power through its legs into the small point of the hoof, which when it makes contact with the ground, propels the horse forward with great intensity and speed. Horses are also incredibly intuitive and sensitive, and they can kind of pick up on the emotions around them, which is great, but they can also spook easily and become erratic if the energy around them becomes frightening. And this can lead to chaos and become quite destabilizing. I think part of this year is going to be about maintaining our calm and not spooking, and considering how and where we channel our energy so that we can move in the direction that we want to go with intention. So, fire energy brings intensity, heat, and confrontation. Fire is an expansive energy which needs to be fed, and the heat generated by the fire needs to go someplace. And it can be sort of lost or it can be channeled into doing work. Um, and once a fire is started, it can't be stopped. It needs to be contained. However, given the proper boundaries and structure, fire can keep us warm, illuminate the dark, and cook our food. If it is out of our control, it can destroy homes, forests, cities, entire environments, and ecosystems. And so this year will bring up a lot of intensity, sudden change, and breaking away from old structures. I think about fire spreading or horses jumping out of its pen and running free. I've also heard it said that the fire horse change forces change through chaos, and that this will be a very dynamic year. I think it's important to consider how we direct our energy this year and to consider how we feed this fire as well as how we contain it and where we direct all of this heat and power. This is a time that can bring up great social change. The last time we had a fire horse year was 1966, which was a time of global change and revolution. And the fire horse is independent and also a leader. It is willful and powerful. It moves with purpose. But in order to do this, we need to learn to develop patience and practice restraint and tolerance, and to be wise around the ways that we use our energy and where we direct our power without getting overwhelmed by external conditions and kind of flailing out or burning down everything around us. So that's my 2 cents on the year of the fire horse. There are people who have a lot more knowledge of Chinese astrology, and I urge you to do your own research, but that's sort of what I came up with late last night as I was putting this together. So, a couple other transits that are going on this week, I'm going to skip over because, got a lot to say about the Saturn Neptune conjunction. But on Wednesday, February the 18th, we have the sun entering Pisces. So, happy birthday, all you fishes out there. And then February the 20th, the big day, we have the Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries occurring at 0 degrees and 45 arc minutes. So, um, Ooh, Lunarly saying loving your insights and wisdom on the eclipses. Thank you. I hope that this is helpful. And so Saturn and Neptune were within 13 minutes, which is not a lot here. And let me shift this to, yep, there we go. So for the folks on the YouTube, I have the Saturn Neptune conjunction chart pulled up here. It's occurring at 9:54 in the AM. That's Mountain Time on Friday, February the 20th. We see them there at 0 degrees and 45 arc minutes. So yeah. So Saturn and Neptune were within 13 minutes, which is pretty close of a conjunction on July 12th when Saturn stationed retrograde. And during that Saturn station, Saturn was at 1 degree and 56 minutes of Aries, and Neptune was at 2 degrees and 9 minutes of Aries. So, yeah, pretty dang close. Now, Friday, February the 20th, they're going to complete that conjunction. So themes that were developing over the summer are coming to a head and reaching a point of culmination. Saturn, planet of structure, and Neptune is dissolving. And so when these planets come together, we are going to experience the dissolving of some systems and structures. I feel like Saturn in Aries is going to feel rushed to try and implement new forms of order and structure. Saturn is really interested in order, likes to keep things contained, likes to know where everything is. Saturn likes to be in control. And so, as Neptune is sort of washing away these old structures, Saturn is going to be scrambling to implement new ways that it can control outcomes and order systems. But Saturn is only in Aries for 2.5 years, whereas Neptune is going to be there for 14. So, whatever form Saturn is able to create are going to get washed away by the tides of Neptune if they are not bolted down or built to last. And I don't know, Saturn and Aries might have a hard time building things to last because of that rushed feeling. So Saturn creates walls and boundaries and limitations, and Neptune washes things away over time, like water softening or eroding stone as it continually washes over it. Saturn Neptune conjunctions happen every 36 years, and it's kind of a big deal. This is one of the biggest astrological transits of 2026, and we have been watching this relationship unfold over the past year or so. It is my perception is that the Saturn Neptune relationship has shown up in the ineptitude of leadership and the failing of systems, as well as the fanatical beliefs that have motivated actions and swept people up into movements. Is these deep ideological beliefs that have created divisions between people that are eroding the structures that people have relied on in the past. Over the past 2 years, Saturn and Neptune were moving through Pisces, which is well, Neptune was there for 14, Saturn was there for 2.5, but they've been inching slowly closer together. And in Pisces, this is a sign that deals with big emotions, compassion, assimilation, is like the vast sea of consciousness that we are all swimming in. There's a dreamy quality to Pisces, where the individual consciousness is sort of dissolved into the vast ocean of the collective. As Saturn and Neptune enter Aries and form this conjunction, there's an awakening that occurs. And this may be a rude awakening where we are confronted with the reality that we have created for ourselves or which has been kind of created for us, which we can no longer ignore. No matter how much we want to pull the blankets over our head and go back into the comfiness of our dreams, the unfolding, the conjunction of Saturn and Aries, Saturn and Neptune and Aries is like a big wake-up call. And I think the way that the Epstein files has been unfolding and the revelation of how power functions and the ways in which powerful individuals have been protected despite the atrocities that they committed is evidence of this. There is no more kind of ignoring the way that power functions. And I think that the Epstein files are an example of that. And there is such a kind of massive effort at a systemic level to continue this cover up and to maintain the dream of the status quo and be like, oh, it's not a big deal, just go back to sleep. We also see this in ISIS operations all over America, driven by the ideological beliefs of Christian nationalism and the ideas around purity, which have revealed itself as a fascist attempt at ethnic cleansing, and the oppression of dissenting ideas has also been revealed. It has also revealed the failings of systems and the impotence of leadership to confront the authoritarian takeover of America in an attempt to maintain the dream of a democracy, which is slipping away. So the Neptune-Saturn conjunction washes away old forms and dissolves the status quo. It also reveals ineptitude in leadership and the failings of outdated structures, which can lead to structural collapse and power vacuums. And I'm not saying that any of these things will happen here, but it's something to keep in mind. And the way that America is going at this point, there is not much integrity left, in my opinion. And much of how this system functions is based on belief. The belief in the power of the dollar, the belief in the social contract, the belief in democracy. And once people stop believing in these things, the egregore or the thought form that is created by them begins to dry up and fade away. And that brings with it rude awakenings and the need to consolidate and work with whatever there is and the reality that exists under these dreams. So, another signature of the Saturn Neptune conjunction is the dissolving and shifting of borders and boundaries. The last time we had a Saturn Neptune conjunction was in 1989. And just heads up, we're going to do some history here. So, if you're here for it, great. And if not, you can just tune out for a minute. So we had a Saturn-Neptune conjunction in 1989, which led to the fall of the Berlin Wall and the dissolving of a boundary that had existed since the end of the Second World War. And Uranus was involved in that conjunction in Capricorn, which added an increased revolutionary quality to that conjunction. And the and that and excuse me. So, however, that conjunction and the fall of the wall, which symbolized the end of the Soviet Union, led to power vacuums, which was then filled by Boris Yeltsin, who put the oligarchs in power in Russia, which they're still in power. And this also created the conditions for Vladimir Putin to come to power in 1999, which oddly enough, his rise to power occurred just after Saturn's opening square with Neptune. So we see kind of like a developing cycle here. Now, the previous Saturn Neptune conjunction occurred in 1952, 1953 in Libra, with the final conjunction in that set occurring on July 21st, 1953. And in August 1953, there was a US and UK backed coup that deposed the democratically elected leader of Iran. Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh was ousted by the CIA and MI6 after nationalizing the Anglo-Iranian oil company, which is now BP. And the US installed the Shah, who was sympathetic to the West, as the leader of Iran. And the Shah, when the Shah returned to power, he suppressed all dissidents and jailed or executed his political enemies. And then the Shah was finally overthrown in the Iranian Revolution in 1978 to 1979. Ayatollah Khomeini returned on February 1st, 1979, and by February 11th, the imperial government of the Shah had collapsed. Now, in April of 1979, Iran officially voted to become the Islamic Republic with the Ayatollah Khomeini as its leader. And the closing Saturn-Neptune square occurred on September 14th of 1978, just a few months after the culmination of the Iranian Revolution. So, what does this all mean? We see a pattern of governments being overthrown or falling apart, followed by periods of either repression or opportunism, which results in shifting political dynamics and the rise of strongman leaders who are driven by ideological beliefs. This is only two examples, but these dynamics tend to play out through the Saturn Neptune cycle. The dissolving of states, governments, territorial boundaries, which result in reconsolidation and the rise of a new status quo, and repressive structures, which seek to create new ordering systems based on ideological beliefs. The question that always comes up for me with astrology is, how do we do these cycles differently? While none of us at an individual level have the power to sway or change global or national systems, and in many ways we are kind of carried by the wave of the collective, how can we show up on an individual level, knowing what we know, to do things differently? As we notice the reordering of systems within ourselves and the dissolving of old structures in our internal worlds, how can we show up consciously to create something that feels aligned with the ideals we are striving for, instead of settling for anything to keep the chaos at bay? Neptune is the feeling of things slipping through our fingers, while Saturn tries to cling on to and hold whatever it can to maintain some sense of control in this topsy-turvy world. Can we allow what needs to slip away to go and practice ways of being conscious of what we want to create, instead of grasping at anything out of the fear of the unknown, or holding tightly to what is no longer working because of the comfort of what feels familiar, even though we know it's toxic at some level? Can we let go of what needs to be washed away and create something new on a solid foundation, which can possibly help to hold a better future for everyone, not just the ones who seek power and use oppression as a way to maintain their control? And can we allow this change to occur in ourselves and let go of our grip on control and what is known, so that we can dream something better than what has been handed down to us from the past? Aries is initiating and breaking new ground in order to create new patterns and new ways of being and belonging in the world. It is like the first land creature emerging from the primordial sea of Pisces, struggling to make something new and fresh, and birthing something new from the dissolution of the ending of the old cycle. And this is happening within, as at the same time that it's happening without. So don't get lost in the waves of external situations that toss and turn us, and then forget about the role that we each have in creating this change and birthing something new into this world. And that involves the recognition of how these shifts exist on an internal level and are showing up each day to help carve out a new reality from the old world, which is dissolving all around us. So that brings us to Sunday, February the 22nd, the last transit of the week. Let me pull that chart up. Sorry. Nope. Nope. Okay. So on Sunday, February the 17th, we have a very supportive trine. What? No. Give me a second. Uh, Sorry. Pardon me, folks. Okay. Figured out how to use my astrology program. Okay. On Sunday, February the 22nd, there we go. We have a supportive trine between Venus over here at 15 degrees and 31 arc minutes of Pisces, trining Jupiter, who's retrograde in Cancer at 15 degrees and 31 arc minutes. So both Venus and Jupiter are exalted in the signs of Cancer. Jupiter is exalted there, and Venus is exalted in Pisces. These are both water signs. So this is a beneficial transit to round out this pretty intense week. And I'm gonna take whatever I can get at this point. You know what I'm saying? So both Venus and Jupiter are benefics, and they lend some ease to the big changes that we are experiencing this week. In this trine, these exalted planets are collaborating to assist us in being with the feelings and the emotions that arise this week. They're both in water signs. Water has a lot to do with our emotional body, our emotional reality, how we navigate the seas of emotion. And Jupiter and Venus in this supportive trine can help us to channel that emotional energy into what we care about. It helps to remind us of what we love and our connection to those around us and to life itself. So, and I want to say that a lot of my thinking around this last section comes from a Dharma talk through Big Heart City meditation, and that I go to when I can. And last Friday, Vinny Ferraro gave this Dharma talk, and a lot of I mean, it's been with me through the weekend, and a lot of this section, I'm kind of drawing on that talk. So with this trine, Jupiter and Venus exalted in these water signs, feeling good, feeling empowered, feeling raised up. This trine reminds us that we can allow the good to be good. Even in the upheaval and the disruption, we can come back into the present moment and into connection and allow ourselves to be present with what's good and what's working. This trine is an invitation to practice gratitude, to be present with what we are grateful for. This is also an opportunity to savor what is good instead of bracing for what might come next. In times of chaos, it's easy to spiral out into fear and the possibilities of what could go wrong because there are so many possibilities that my mind can imagine of everything that can totally go wrong. And this is us just trying to have a sense of control in a world that is bigger than us. It is us trying to protect what we love, protect ourselves. And this is all well and good, but it takes us out of the present moment and pulls us into stories of fear instead of allowing us to be with ourselves and notice what is actually happening, what is actually working. And so, this trine is an invitation to come back into this moment and to ask ourselves, what is actually happening? What is actually true in this moment? Can we allow ourselves to lean into the good and savor what feels good instead of just bracing for a fall that may never come? With this harmonious relationship between Venus and Jupiter, we may not feel very productive, and that's totally fine, y'all. These planets like to chill and enjoy themselves, and we can honor them by allowing ourselves to rest and enjoy life for a moment. And when I say enjoy life, I mean enjoy it in a guilt-free way. You know what I'm saying? Like, allow yourself to savor what is good, allow the good to be good. And I think this is incredibly important for building resilience. And resilience is important for weathering the storm and navigating the chaos and change. Now, the shadow side of this transit is there may be a bit of a desire to overindulge. Jupiter and Venus both love to have a good time. And, having a good time is great, but we want to be aware that we're not checking out through sex and drugs and rock and roll. And there's nothing wrong with any of this, but we want to stay conscious about what we're doing and why. And if we're feeling overwhelmed by our feelings, it's natural to try and do things to help us to self-regulate. However, we want to try and stay present with what is coming up because there is good information there. Instead of looking for some escape route through other people or partying or overindulging, clinging to pleasure creates just as much suffering as the running from pain. So we want to just allow and be present with what comes up while noticing what is good without trying to grasp onto it or using it to escape what is uncomfortable. And straight up, this is a tall order, but it's cool. You just get to practice this for a day or two and just see how it feels. So with this transit, it's important to remember that too much of a good thing isn't necessarily a good thing. And we want to find ways that we can lean into enjoyment without totally checking out. But on Sunday, see if you can just give yourself the gift of yourself to be and to really practice letting the good be good and enjoying your life and savoring it wherever you can. And so with that, my friends, I we have arrived at the close of another exciting week in space. Yeah, I hope you all navigate this with some style and grace. with an elegance and a savoir-faire. And I feel very grateful that I get to be here to, lend my 2 cents on what I think is going down. And I hope that this is helpful for somebody out there. Um, yeah, and so I'm gonna end the YouTube and then check the comments on the Instagram if folks have questions or want to stick around for a minute. And yeah, until next time, my friends, be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and as always, may the force be with you. All right, bye now.